Welcome to Mac Gamecast episode 18, a gaming-related podcast, sometimes Mac, sometimes adjacent stuff. Always fun. With me today is Ted. How you doing, Ted?
Oh, doing good. Okay, today.
Casper. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Having some nice time to relax finally.
Nice. I kind of failed your intro there. Sorry. And Lily. How are you?
Hello.
Hooray, she's back.
Good. Yes, I make my scheduled monthly appearance before disappearing again.
just to pump up our listener numbers.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, it works out great. So today, and of course I'm John as always, and today we're going to do a little bit of a part 2 of our last episode 17, Are Games Art or Something More, or Can Games Be Art? We'll hear Lily and Ted weigh in their comments on that. We're going to talk about our strategies to tackle gaming backlogs and whether they're effective or not. And then we have some couple sprinklings of tech and gaming related news. Probably Casper and I will cover. So why don't we dive into the immediate continuation of the games as art idea? So for listeners haven't caught the previous podcast, you can hear Sam, Casper, and mine thoughts on that. We had similar conclusions, but we each had some, I think, interesting viewpoints that maybe the others didn't. So Ted or Lily, did one of you want to go first on this idea? Do you have a burning desire to consider games as art? You can also decline to answer if you'd rather just move on. But it'd be more fun to hear.
I'll talk whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah, Ted, what do you think, in your experience?
Well, I personally feel that it is an art form. I've said this probably before to a lot of other people, that a really good game is like experiencing a novel, except that you have the ability to participate in some aspect of it. And some of the games, they're really kind of you can only do certain things, but a lot of the more well-developed games, you can actually make a variety of different choices. And a couple episodes ago, we were talking about Metro Exodus and how there's different endings depending on your choices in the game. And it's kind of like you can experience it in different ways, or even a real good like an RPG or something, you can play different characters and experience the story from the aspect of a different way of playing. One could be just a warrior where you slam things. One could be a magic user, but it's you're participating in the book, you're participating in the story, and if it's done well, you really get drawn into it, and you really look forward to what's going to happen next, just like on a good book or a good movie or a TV show, whatever. I really feel strongly about that. I would much rather play a good game than watch a decent TV show. I mean, I find it a lot more interesting to participate. And so, I really feel it is an art form. Some of the games are just, little arcade games. It's just a pastime, slam the bricks back and forth and whatnot. And that is just little fun thing, pastime. But the well-developed story-based games are really, I really feel that strongly. So. That's
nice.
My opinion.
I believe it was Casper who posed the interesting sort of angle that maybe not the game itself, but game design. Or was it Sam who was posing that kind of game design could be an art form? Was it Sam?
Yeah, that was Sam.
Okay, sorry.
Sam initiated that.
Right, Sam initiated that. What do you think about that idea? Sort of maybe not the game itself, but maybe some mechanism or game loop or something within that game. Could that be? Would you consider game design and development? Is that all related? Do you find that separate?
Yeah. I think it's very much related. You can't make a game that draws you into the story without having some amount of creative development involved. I mean, it would just be a boring story. Okay, right. Run out there and smack some monsters and come back with But you put a storyline behind it. Now you're out. You're looking for some trinket from some wizard that's going to save the world or whatever, and it's not an easy task, and you have to research and look for clues and whatnot, as well as smacking some monsters around or whatever. I mean, it's and so the development part of it really needs to be creative, and then the artwork on it, I mean, sometimes it's unbelievable. When you go into I've had a lot of stories over the years of, having wandered into some sort of game environment, like back in the old days in Unreal Tournament, and seeing scenery that, was actually taken from the real world and put into the game. And you look and you go, oh wow, bam! Oh, they got me. I was always notorious for looking at the scenery and getting shot.
Nice.
But I always found this so fascinating to look. I figured they did a lot of work, and if they put a little corner over here to look at, somebody actually spent the time to develop that image. And it was worth looking at in my eyes, even if I was going to get shot doing it. So,
yeah, shout out to Unreal Tournament 99. Actually had some really, really good level design.
There was some beautiful ones in there. Yeah.
Really, really strong. Edged out. This competition at the time was Quake 3. Quake 3 visually looked a bit better, but the level design of UT and the game modes, in my opinion, were superior. Obviously, some people may disagree, but really, really nice.
And also
stuff. Yeah.
Also into the sound, I was just thinking the other part of it is the sound and the tension that's created. I mean, one of the funny stories, old story, years ago, I was playing some sort of an RPG. I can't even remember what the name of the game was. And, so you're walking down this corridor and all of a sudden the skeleton jumped out at me. And I actually jumped back when I was playing the game because it really worked. It really startled me to have this thing pop out all of a sudden, in this dark, gloomy cavern that I was walking through, but
nice.
That type of stuff. And that's all creative. That's people putting the scene together, just like in a movie or in a good book where they figure out how to create that tension and draw you into it. So you're following something and then something else pops out at you. So very creative. I really feel that strongly.
I like that you brought that up. I don't think we really covered audio or music that much in the last part one, essentially, of this conversation. I don't recall it being any major part of the discussion, but I think the sound design is, because when it's really good, you kind of don't notice it in a sense because it is so good. Although maybe like the music's really cool and you want, I want to go like download that or listen to it on YouTube or Spotify or something. Like a game that kind of bombed, or not kind of, did bomb and die. Anthem, for example, actually had a really cool soundtrack. It's like really, really good. And it was also made by a woman. I forget her name. But it was like, okay, this game may not have done so well and eventually kind of died off, but it had this really, really strong soundtrack that a lot of people went, wow, like this is cool. This is memorable. I want to listen to it.
Right.
So even if an overall, maybe the entire experience doesn't like stand the test of either time or critics or users or whatever, but parts of it, say like the soundtrack, may stand out. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I agree. I actually still have the theme song for Marathon in one of my playlists.
Oh,
nice.
I like it.
But it was some the music and then the sound effects too. I mean, going back to the days of the radio, where people would try to create, an audio effect with just sounds. I mean, sometimes you're walking through the woods in an MMORP or something like that, and you can hear the monsters in the background or something walking around, and you could actually hear the something that alerts you to something that might be happening, but it actually adds to the story. And then there's the tension too, because if you're trying to hide away from things or circumvent some sort of obstacle, monster, whatever obstacle, the audio part can really help you, alert you to where you have to go. And with today's, headphones and all that, I mean, you can hear it real well.
Yeah, good headphones, good speakers.
Good speakers, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, again, referencing Metro Exodus, really good soundscape in that game. Like firing near the guns, the way it might echo, depending on where you are, for example. Really brilliant.
Sure.
I haven't quite heard it, and I play a lot of shooters. I haven't heard really any other shooter do it. Okay, I haven't been, in an abandoned building firing an AK at monsters, but like it's like, oh, this is what I imagine it would sound like, and that's how you feel when you're playing the game. So it's like really good
exactly,
feedback.
and it's all.
Yeah.
If you can feel that way, then they've accomplished, the artistry that they were trying to make you feel like you're really in that environment, at least in your imagination, which is what storytelling is all about.
Right.
So, yeah.
Lily, Miss Silent Soldier, what do you think about games as art? And I kind of want to loop back around to the shooting thing because you are an active soldier as well. So that could be interesting. Like, how good is, so let's just jump right into that. How good in your experience, like, is sound design in games, particularly like shooting or military style games?
I think sound design is really important. Absolutely. One thing I've noticed, especially with recent shooters, the big name shooters like Battlefield, Battlefield 5 does this really well, for instance. The sound of the weapon firing actually makes it feel like more gritty, more, I guess, realistic in a sense. Like it almost, you can almost feel your screen like shaking more when and it's, it sounds weird when I say it, but it's true. Like you look at older shooting games where they didn't really have this down, but like, your screen shakes with the recoil and everything, but it kind of feels just like, it doesn't feel as heavy when you're firing a weapon. But anyone who's actually fired a rifle, especially on like fully automatic, that's grinding into you. That's, it's a heavy feeling.
Right. Recoil's real. Yeah.
Yeah. And the sound of it can make that feel more impactful in a way. Like hearing your weapon, like the internals of the weapon versus, older style games, which is just, okay, there's a bang and, maybe the bang isn't as well developed, but now it's like, okay, you can hear the internals of your weapon firing. You can hear the recoil of the bolt. You can hear the weapon actually firing. You can hear the bullet, and each weapon sounds different. Like in Battlefield 5, the SMLE doesn't sound the same, or not the SMLE, that's Battlefield 1, but like the STG doesn't sound the same as the Sten.
Right.
Like the Sten sounds lighter. It sounds like a submachine gun. The STG is higher caliber. It's an assault rifle. So I think sound design goes a long way in making those weapons feel more impactful.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Quick shout out for not a Mac game, but 2019's Modern Warfare. What I liked about it, okay, it's very arcadey and everything, so that part isn't realistic. But the weapon animations were really, really nice. Like a step up, at least compared to
they were absolutely.
Like the reload animations and stuff as well. Like, ooh, similar to what you were talking about with the audio, like recoil and stuff. Just like it makes you feel like you're handling. Okay, I haven't handled fully automatic rifles, just semi-auto, but it's like, oh yeah, this really adds to that immersion. So little stuff like small animation touches just like really add to the immersion too. That's pretty cool. But as a general topic, you yourself as a gamer, Lily, like, what do you think about the games as art proposal, for you? Or is it just fun and games, entertainment, or is there like more there?
No, I think there's definitely more there. I feel like it depends on the game, because I think let's just put it this way, every game has some element of artistic design behind it. It has to, especially in the modern environment of, graphics and sound design. Everything's just getting so much better. But I think some games are more artistic than others. Not all games are made equal.
Right.
I think my ideal example would be, so you have a game like PUBG or Apex Legends or, multiplayer only, like you kind of get in there, you shoot some things, and then you're done. Right. Even in those games, there still has to be an aspect of music, of graphics, of, weapon design, and just the way the game feels, the way it runs, all of that takes time and effort. And I don't feel that someone writing a code or someone designing the way a character looks is any less of an artist than someone, directing a film or drawing a painting, something like that. But there are definitely games that have a lot more artistic involvement. Things like, Metro, Mass Effect, Deus Ex, stories that need writers, professional writers that take a lot of time to dedicate to this and give life to those characters. And especially stories like Metro and Mass Effect, where you have all these different routes that your character can take. Think about the voice actor for Commander Shepard. Like, one day you're voicing Shepard in this scenario and you're being noble, and then probably just a couple minutes later you're being a complete asshole. Like that takes some artistic skill there, like to portray that emotion, to portray that involvement. And I think that certain games for that reason can be considered to have much more artistic development. But at the end of the day, I think, again, games are a form of art. They're a form of entertainment, but art at its core is entertainment. We talk a lot about, artists are expressing themselves, but they're expressing themselves as a form of providing entertainment.
I forgot to think about it that way. I'm really glad you said that, because people are looking at art typically to try and enjoy it. And we're typically playing games to try and enjoy the game as well. So if you're just talking about general enjoying and entertainment, it's all in the same sphere. So I'm really glad you said that. I also liked what you said about every game has some artistry to it. It's just some more than others. That was largely my thrust last podcast as well. Like, I think I gave an example like Doom or like the remakes. Of course, there's a lot of artistry and creation involved. But I guess I was talking more about like meaningful, emotional impact, or maybe trying to be philosophical or something, like Bioshock. But of course, Lily and I were both huge Mass Effect fans. Sadly, a game not on the Mac, although you can, for the longest time, you've been able to get it to run using crossover. Like, even several years ago, you could do it, and now you can probably even do it better. I don't know about the remaster, the Legendary Edition or whatever it's called. I don't know if that one can run, but the older games I know can. Casper, yeah.
Regarding the remaster, Andy, who we had on the podcast a while back, Andy Sai, he did a video where he actually showed the remastered versions running through crossover. So that definitely does work.
Hype. Nice. Yeah. Really great set of games with a cool story, and also that carries over your choices if you import your saves. And you can't really be like truly evil the way you could in, say, like, I don't know, some other games, or maybe like games like Baldur's Gate or something. You can basically just be a jerk saving the galaxy, or like a really nice guy or gal saving the galaxy. I guess there are a few moments where you can be like kind of evil, say like whether if you kill, what is it, Rex at the end of Mass Effect 1 or not, or whatever, like that's pretty evil, I guess. Or if you choose to like save.
Spoilers. Well,
the game is from 2007, so I feel like that, whatever, statute of spoilers is fine. Or like, there's a few like pretty clear, more like good and evil type choices in the game, though surprisingly most of them seem to be related to the Krogans, really. I guess there's a couple other. Basically, it's like, how do you like help propagate these alien races, alien to humans, or do you like eradicate them? See also the Rachni Queen, also Mass Effect 1. It's all in Mass Effect 1. Anyway, I don't know. Actually never finished Mass Effect 3, so I'm not sure if you have any Xeno destroying opportunities there. But games as art, games as entertainment, definitely there. Speaking of all these various games to play, let's talk about some personal strategies for playing games, maybe we've either haven't played at all or only half played or whatever, basically our gaming backlogs. Everyone has one. It's just a matter of if it's, 5 or 10 games or 100. So I've made some progress on my backlog in the last year or two. Basically, I was on a really good schedule, if you will, more like I would just, because I tend to play single player games, or maybe single player games that had a multiplayer component as well, and then play it for a while, a few months or something, and then move on to the next one. But then I got sucked into the black hole of endless games that never end. A lot of them were Blizzard titles like Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, or Dota 2 over on Steam and stuff like that, or just even multiplayer stuff, Call of Duty, where you just can play forever. It doesn't end. It only ends when you stop playing. There's no here's the end of the game. So I never made any progress, but I kept either games kept piling up or I'd buy them on sale, the usual nonsense. Oh, it's on sale, and then before I knew it, I had this 20, 30 game list long of stuff I actually really wanted to play, but I was never playing. So I just went hardcore cold turkey and all the endless games, just immediately booted them all out. Although there were a few reinstalls along the way, and then I had to play and then uninstall again and then work on my backlog. So I made a lot of progress. I even keep a list of games to do and stuff I haven't done, and what's max specific, and a couple boot camp things and this and that. So I've done a lot. I think I've knocked out 20 or something in the last year or two, maybe more. So I'm down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm down to 8. Not bad. It's a lot better, but I still get sidetracked. I try to keep a a rule where don't buy anything new until you have something, until you need something new to play. I'm out of games. What's new? Of course, I've occasionally bought something new and played it, and that's sidetracked me. Speaking of GeForce Now, really quick, I tested out their 3080 RTX tier, the $99 for 6 months. So I got it for $90 because of the founder discount. It gives 1440p streaming and what else? 120 FPS and better latency and blah blah blah. So it's pretty cool, but there's no game to actually take advantage of it. But that's kind of other than Cyberpunk 2077. That's kind of it. But I've been getting sidetracked by Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because it was on sale and I had a $10 coupon from Epic, so I got it for $25. So it was hard to pass up. So that sidetracked me as well. I'm supposed to be playing Disco Elysium and Warhammer Dawn of War 3. That's my next to do. So some progress, some sidetracking, some backtracking. I've largely avoided getting sucked into the endless games again, though I still have friends on Dota 2 or Heroes of the Storm come play, and I'm it's fun, but it's the same fun I've played hundreds or even thousands of times. It's boring fun. I want my main goal, my main discipline now is I want new experiences. It doesn't have to be a new game, just a game I haven't played, or maybe a game I've half played and I want to finish the story because, this game actually had a really interesting story or a really interesting character or maybe a really interesting theme or gameplay loop or whatever. There has been a list of abandoned games though. I have stuff here After Party, and I have all these little notes. Good, but not good enough. Hacknet, this little hacking game. Interesting, but not amazing. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I wrote terrible theme, boring story. I really don't I love the first two games anyway. I don't know. Okay. Some other stuff, Tooth and Tail. I'm I've forgotten how to play this. I loaded it up and I couldn't. This little strategy game with mice and animals and stuff. I couldn't remember how to play it. I don't know. Epistory Typing Chronicles, a typing directed game. I got stuck in a bug endlessly, and I'm just whatever, and I gave up. A couple other games. Actually got stuck on John Wick Hex 2, though not because of a bug. Anyway, I don't want to take over with all my abandoned games, but I have this abandoned section and reasons why. In a pretty long completed sections. That's my strategy with largely successful, but not entirely, some sidetracking. Basically the only way to do it has been ruthlessly disciplined about avoiding games. But then it's maybe you have friends in these games and you want to go hang out and play with them sometimes. It could be whatever. There's so many multiplayer games these days. Easy to get sucked into them, but I also love single player games and a great story and characters, or those, or epic type games like Mass Effects or RPGs or whatever, your Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity Original Sins, like these cool epic games with stories and characters and romances and adventure. And anyway, like Ted was talking a lot about, like a good narrative hook, like really, really drives me in games. So single player games or maybe cooperative games tend to have those more than a pure multiplayer title on average. So that's it for me. Anyone else is free to go next on their personal, the on paper and the reality, as Lily said earlier before we recorded.
Well, I mean, personally, as with most parts of my life, I exist with zero structure. So I'm like the least organized person in the world. I don't have a written down backlog or anything like that. I don't even really have one in my head. I just know that there are plenty of games that I should have played, but I forgot about. And by the nature of forgetting about them, I don't know what they are anymore.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I do sometimes just go through my list of games on Steam that I don't have installed, and I go like, oh, I should play that one at some point, and then I forget about that again.
Right.
But yeah, I tend to mostly play like 1, 2, at most 3 games at a time, where one is more like narrative based and the others might just be like light entertainment, switch your brain off type things.
Right.
So I guess I focus a bit on one thing, push through it, and then initiate something new after that. Though I have done this thing with Red Dead Redemption 2 where I'm like in the I think final act of the game. I don't know for sure. And then I just started playing Disco Elysium and pushed through all of that, while not finishing Red Dead.
Right.
And now I've started Jedi Fallen Order. I still haven't finished Red Dead. I just played a few missions of Red Dead, and then I went like, oh, Fallen Order looks fun, and then started doing that. So yeah, zero structure. I just sometimes go through my Steam games, and if there's something on sale for like a good Christmas holiday sale or something, I pick something new up to add to the list of not yet played games. And sometimes, if I see something that's specifically on the Mac, I'll pick that up just because I want to support Mac development. And, if it looks good and it has a Mac version, then extra incentive from my side to get it.
Nice. I like that. I like your style because that's how I used to be until I acquired a backlog. And it's actually way more fun to play that way. Because now I almost feel like it's like a chore sometimes. It's like, here's this list. So I'm trying to clear the backlog to get rid of that feeling and not just I'd rather just basically do exactly what you're doing. I have this Steam category called the Great Backlog Project. And so it lists uninstalled or not what's there. And again, I've eliminated tons of it, so it's getting there. But I still feel like, I'd rather have that carefree, just like whatever feeling, basically unstructured, what you're talking about. So I admire you. I'm trying to get there, but I'm still got some stuff to go through. Ted, how about you?
First time I've ever been admired for having no structure.
I like that. I kind of a different way. I have usually 3 types of games going at one time. I usually have one MMORP going, one cooperative game, and one single player game. And I'll get hooked into the deals when something comes up. But usually, if the game is, I get it, I install it, I play it, and it's in one of those categories, I usually stick with it for a long time. So, I mean, I played World of Warcraft since the beginning. So I think that's probably about 15 years, which is a bit long, but but I guess it's kind of like playing the game to death. Same with the Diablo, the original one and the second one. I think I played, all the way through on all different levels, playing with a friend or playing separately. But generally, if I have and right now I'm kind of looking for a single player game, although I'm kind of, I actually bought the Metro Exodus Sam story, and I was planning on getting into that to,
Nice.
go through it. But that would be my, single player. But I'm playing 2 other games right now, one cooperative with a friend, and then, one MMORP. So that's usually the way I do it. I do sometimes have a backlog, and if the game isn't really that good, it doesn't hook me into it. It might sit there for a while. or it might not sit there for a very long while. You know,
Right.
it's just like a book. If the book can't pull me into it quickly enough, it might just get put aside and not read. Or, you know, I don't have a vested interest. I mean, you know, you're paying for it, but it's like if it can't pull me into the story, or they do something stupid like, you know, the game is so impossibly hard, or that you have to go back 15,000 steps to get back to where you were when something went wrong. It's like, okay, is it really worth the effort to do it all over again?
Mm.
Or it is or it isn't, depending on the game. And that's, you know, I've run into a couple games like that where it wasn't worth going into it. But that's usually my thing. I don't usually have a big backlog. Um, I agree with Casper big time. If a game comes out that has a Mac OS version, I'll generally do some serious research on it, and if I don't own it and it looks good, I'll get it, and you know, put that into my let's get this tried out soon queue type of thing. That's how I found a couple real good gems that way over the years. So,
Nice.
but yeah, that's kind of my story on it. So
Nice.
Nice.
And Lily, spotlight on you. What's your personal strategy, if any, available for gaming backlogs?
Honestly,
and such?
you know, life is busy. So, most of the time, I just kind of, you know, I'll just send it depending on how much time I have or what exactly is like attracting me at the time. Like I have a couple different genres that I like to focus on. So RTS, MOBAs, MMOs, FPSs. I kind of play it all. I'm the jack of all trades, master of none. But so I kind of have a list for each genre, basically. Like for the never-ending games like MMOs or MOBAs, it's like kind of always there. Like I like playing League of Legends. I never got on the Dota train. For my MOBA choice, for my MMO, I used to be big on World of Warcraft. Now I play Final Fantasy XIV a lot. And then RTSs, I'll like bounce around the Total Wars. I have like a little list of, okay, I want to finish playing the Dawn of War series. I'm currently still on one of the
Dawn of War 2?
I'm on like Dawn of War 1, the Necron one.
Oh,
one
those.
The Necrons.
Oh, yeah. That one's good. Yeah.
I'm working my way up to Soulstorm, so I get to play my excellent Sisters of Battle, my favorite faction. But right now I'm playing the Eldar. But yeah, then like FPSs, I have a little list of those. And so it really just depends on how much time I have. Like, you know, am I getting pulled into the field for a week tomorrow? If so, I'm probably not gonna start piling a lot of time into a RTS or something, because then I start a campaign and then I'm in the middle of it and then I leave and then I come back and it's like, all right, why are the French invading my border again? And then if I'm like right now I got some downtime, not entirely like assigned somewhere, I'm kind of floating in between, that's when I'll kind of start hitting off stuff like, you know, MOBAs, RTSs, that sort of stuff.
Right, things you can really sink into.
Yeah, so it's a pretty nebulous strategy, all things considered, but that's just a side effect of how my life has.
Well, yeah. Well, you play.
assembled.
Yeah, you play based on your circumstances. I mean, it's very reasonable, actually. And there is some strategy there, like you were saying. If you're really busy or you're being deployed or this or that, you're not going to dive into like, you know, some RTS campaign or whatever. You'll play something else. So you do have a strategy. You are doing something. And I like that you also have some lists. Yeah, it's funny to me because I've never been an MMO gamer other than testing out a few trials. World of Warcraft. I don't know. I played a tour into level 20. what else? Guild Wars 2 I faffed around with a little bit. There's probably a couple others I can't even remember the names of. But like these MMO and MOBA lists hardly ever change, other than I guess there's new MMOs released. But the MOBA list is so static. League was out in 2009, and Dota 2 was out in 2011. And it's like they're just the MOBAs. Okay, Here's the Storm came along, made a little splash, but nothing. A lot of people consider it piddly. There's a bunch of other MOBAs that have launched and died in the meantime. There's funny little like 2D ones and top-down one, like not like more like indie MOBAs essentially. And they're floating around, have some little popularity, but it's like Dota or League is like the kings. They've been there for like over a decade each. So that's kind of interesting to me. MMOs as well, it's like WoW and Final Fantasy XIV are the kings, or king and queen, whatever you want to call it. And, maybe like, okay, now New World's out. That's like getting a lot of buzz. Whoa, speaking of buzzing, Casper's mic just went
Someone
bonkers.
dropped a mic.
Yeah.
This is why I just use the mic that is attached to my headphones.
Yeah, maybe you can tell me when he's not fuzzy, because I muted him. Because it's going into the recording.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's working on it.
Technical difficulties. I don't even remember. Oh, I was talking about like MOBAs moving and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're good now. Oh, right, MMOs. Yeah, it's interesting how other genres, there's so many more new releases and so many more contenders, whereas like MMOs and MOBAs are like pretty slow moving, because people tend to get into them for years and years at a time.
Years.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Yeah, but I like your guys's flow. Like, I feel like, because in part of this is also various times doing game journalism, which Ted has done some of as well. And sometimes it's not actually that fun, because you're not playing a game for fun. You're playing it to basically find out why it's good and bad. And you tend to focus more on the bad than the good, because the good's easy. Oh, this part's fun, that part's great. But then it's like, okay, what about it sucks? What about it isn't fun or not well designed or developed, or, what would irritate you, potentially irritate gamers and stuff like that. And that can actually suck a little of the joy out of it. So playing a backlog isn't the same as game journalism, but in some parts it's actually taken a little bit of the joy out of it, because I'm always, at this point, I find myself rushing to get through games. Even if the game's really replayable, I'm like, I'm playing this once. I don't have time to sit here and play it like 2 or 3 times. I'm just going to play it once. I'm just going to one-shot it. So I've found myself doing stuff I normally would never ever do, like lowering the difficulty so it's faster to go through, or less grindy, or combat's easier or something. Normally I never would do that. I typically always play on like hard or something or whatever. Now I'm like, I'm doing that with AC Valhalla. I just put it down to easy. I'm like, I don't want to sit here hitting a guy like 10 times with my axe before he dies.
Wow.
I want to hit him like twice before he dies. Because there's like
100
100
casual gamer.
Yeah, no, I'm turning into
You're
a
like
filthy
all
casual.
those other gamer guys
I know.
out there with your
feels
fancy
lame.
little setup. You're probably going to start streaming.
Oh, did I put it away? I had a little camera I was going to hold up. I put it away, and it's in the drawer in my dresser. Now you're the streamer, Miss. I forget what your stream name is.
Vex.
Vex, yes.
Because Vix was taken, so now I'm Vex. I'm
You're
very
vexed
by
by
the lack of my name.
Yeah. No, so I've turned into a dirty, filthy casual in some cases. But other games I still just like play normally. So I'm trying to get there. There's still a couple of heavy hitters in the way though. That'll take up a lot of time. But yeah. I'm basically just want to get back to that. No hurry, no rush, no like, oh, I got to get through this because there's always more to play type of thing. Obviously, I don't have to, but also since I bought these games, I want to like get my money's worth, quote unquote, out of them, So then I'm like, oh, well, I got to play it. But like I said, I have that abandoned list, so some don't make the cut. But yeah, the good news is there's always lots of games in the past, in the present, in the future. There's no end of games. There's like more than a bazillion game. I don't even know. Like, what is is there like a statistic like of how many games are computer games, not mobile, because that's its own, seventh circle of the underworld. Like, yeah, how many games are there like on Steam? Plus, I don't know. You can also take like non-DRM platforms like GOG or itch.io or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what that number is, but it's got to be really, really, really high. I mean, like, kind of all time, basically. Obviously, if you're talking purely, like, what can run on my Mac right now, that number diminishes a lot because of, you know, all the hardware and software changes and stuff like that. Speaking of hardware and software, Casper, you had linked some interesting stuff on game development. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's this YouTuber called Game from Scratch. He does, among other things, tutorials on game development and stuff like that. And he released a video recently about the M1 Max MacBook Pro. Specifically, he was testing the 24-core model. And he was not testing it for how good it is at playing games. He was testing it for how good it is at making games and the development workflow there. Running it through tests for Unity, Unreal Engine 5 specifically, Blender, and various artistic tools for creating models and artwork and things like that. And he concluded it to be a nicer experience to work with than his Razer Blade. I think it was the 14 he was comparing it against, but so he had the 24-core GPU M1 Max, and I think that was on the 14-inch Book Pro as well, but I'm not sure on that. Gonna have to double check it, but yeah, it's something like that. And he said it was a nice experience in the Razer Blade. I think the Razer Blade had a 3060 RTX GPU or something. So of course it's not comparing against the big league or anything. Comparing against a machine that is meant for at least gaming related workflow, right?
Yeah, that's what's really interesting about the new hardware, is that it's very good at productivity, including apparently making games. And it's even pretty solid at running quite a lot of them. You know, the M1, as we already know, very great. We've talked a lot on the podcast. We each gave Sam and I gave our impressions a few shows ago. Casper, your 24 cores on the way, and any day now, right?
I should arrive tomorrow, actually.
Oh, hype! So you can check that out. But it's true. There is, there's not like really that many games to take advantage of with this new stuff, whether a 24 core or let alone an M1 Max. Other than, again, the only thing that could really stress it is like Borderlands 3. Like, that's it. There's not a single other game available to play on Mac right now that would actually stress out. Like, probably not even, I don't know, maybe a 24 core, but like a jacked up M1 Max, like a 32 core, 64 gig RAM. There's like literally one game that could like strain the machine. And that's kind of sad because, you would like more games to like, of course you can go back and play a bunch of other games in like 4K resolution and get like 100 FPS or whatever. That's cool. But it's not quite the same thing. It's, so this, we talked a tiny bit last show about like, does Apple care about gaming? I think Sam or one of you found some interesting quotes. This other MAGA, it's called laptopmag.com. I saw this on Reddit. I just linked it. And the title is, "It's Time Apple Gave a Damn About Gaming." And same thing. They're saying these machines are really good. The hardware's there. The power's there. We just need more games. The article incorrectly states there's only one native M1 game, or Silicon game, being World of Warcraft. It was the first native Silicon game, at least that we know of. That being said, there's not that many. There's only like 4 or 5 AAA or AA like native games, like Baldur's Gate 3 and Total War Rome Remastered, Disco Elysium. There might be a few others. There's a bunch of like random little indie ones, or a couple on the Apple Arcade, Beneath a Steel Sky or something. There's some out there. But so the main point is, there's not a lot, but there are more than just one. Saying there's only one makes it sound like really, really bad. But I like that there's this more collective energy out there among the interwebs. Even like, I'm not familiar with Laptop Mag, for example. I don't know how, are they very like PC biased or Mac biased or just all laptops in general? I don't know. But I do like it's out there more and more. Like we had that YouTube video with the guy interviewing the Apple XX, can't say the word, executives, asking them about gaming. So it's just kind of in the ether. People are wondering more. They're voicing it more on like social media, articles, YouTube videos. So I like that it's getting out there, and hopefully that sentiment will, reach Apple or reach developers and be like, oh, hey, there's some momentum here. That would be cool.
I think that's a big point of this as well, though, that even if this doesn't reach Apple necessarily. It might reach the larger development community, and more video game developers might see the Macs. Like if they start using more Macs in development process, then they might have a larger interest in also developing the games to be released on macOS.
Right.
That guy I mentioned on YouTube, Game from Scratch, he said he uses a Mac for video editing normally, but he wouldn't consider game development on a Mac before he got the M1 Max machine, and now that's viable as well, so he doesn't need to also have his Razer laptop for that purpose. He can just
Right,
all-in-one
more
machine.
all-in-one. Right, you can do it. Like, that was the part of the laptop Mac article as well. It's like, look, I have an M1 Max, this machine's great, I can do all my productivity and whatever, developing, editing, writing, whatever on it, but I also want to just chill and play my games too. But, like, give me more games. That's the thrust of the article. It's coming from a place of like, hey, we have these awesome hardware that can do tons of stuff. Let's get more support for it. Yeah, so hopefully that does reach out there.
And also, I think you mentioned on an earlier show that Larian have internally in the studio people who use Macs, and that's why they're so interested in getting things like Baldur's Gate on the Mac and stuff.
Yeah.
So if that like spreads to more studios, it could be really good.
Yeah, they do. They have, I don't know, they have their own name. They're called Elveris. You can look them up, Elveras. They have their own little website. But they actually are part of Larian's internal team, and they're the ones who just pushed for the Mac port of the early access Baldur's Gate 3 Mac port. And they specifically said that in their update, like, oh, we have some huge Mac fans on the team here, and they're the ones who pushed to get this out. Otherwise, they were just going to wait till it was out of early access, then do it then. So that's cool. Yeah, we basically just need more of that. Seems like a lot of, pros are picking up the new M1, or the M1 Pros and M1 Max machines. So hopefully it gets out there in some game devs, and they get development for us. And speaking of just general gaming, not native, but more like crossover-y stuff, people are tinkering around with more, DXVK on crossover, and claiming, I think in some cases, doubling their frame rates on certain games. I don't know. He mentioned a couple of racing games, I think, GTA 5. But I think you were saying, Casper, you noticed some stuttering over time with these?
Yeah, that's in every version of crossover I've seen, really. You might get, like, super good frame rates that average, like, 100 FPS or something. But then there's all these little stutters where it runs perfectly for 5 minutes, and then there's one frame that just takes, like, 4 seconds to render. And that kind of thing can be pretty annoying when you're playing and getting into the spirit of things, even if the average frame rate is good. Right.
Like, yeah, I have seen that in some of the example videos. Had a few sent to me by some friends and stuff. And I'm like, this is stuttering for like the first 3 minutes. Like, it gets better later. Or the reverse issue, it like stutters a bunch first, then smooths out. So basically, it's all a matter of what are you willing to tolerate to play the game in question, right? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to tolerate that kind of stutter, or maybe whether it's up front or later or intermittent? Would you rather try and do something on boot camp, or the new machines you can't boot camp? So maybe you turn to streaming, whatever. Again, our hope is, of course, at the end of the day, more native stuff. But it does show that the non-native aspect of Mac gaming, or gaming on a Mac more accurately, is also improving. Basically, that is getting better and better over time. So that's encouraging if that's like your jam. And going by like the kind of questions I see in certain Mac gaming discords, Mac gaming subreddit, a lot of people are into this. This like, how do I run it through crossover or parallels, or some form of wine, or whatever it might be. Less interest in boot camp these days, more in how do I just do it from my Mac side. So that's been interesting to see. Not my preference, but obviously it's good that it's there. So there is a wider range of games supported. I think crossover is a really cool tool. I was actually given a developer key for a review, and sorry, Codeweavers, I never actually put out a review of your software. That was several years ago. My bad. There's only one other game, or one other product I did that with, which was what is it? The Flame and the Flood. This little like survival indie game from a while ago. I got a key. Technically, it's not my fault because I gave it to a writer to review, and they said they would do it, and then they never did. And I'm like, dude, the company gave me the key. Like, I'm on the line. Like, you gotta get a review. And actually, no, wait. I wrote the review, but I didn't publish it. That's what happened. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. Crossover is a really good software, even if it's not my preferred, like, obviously, way to game on the Mac. I think it's super cool. I did play it before the Dawn of War series was ported, not Dawn of War 1 like Lily's playing through. Dawn of War 2, Feral ported over. There's 2 or 3 games in that series. Before that, the official ports came out, I played it all through Crossover, ran really well. Played like Fear 3, ran really well. Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl ran really well. So these are older titles, but they're also like really good games in general. Okay, Fear 3 is probably the worst of the trilogy, but there's a lot of cool games you can play in Crossover. Have they properly... Because, what is it? Trans Gaming, who ran the whole Cider thing, the commercialized offshoot of wine, several years ago announced they were adding DirectX 12 support to their package. And then NVIDIA bought them and they just died, which is weird. And I was like, oh, cool, maybe NVIDIA will do something with like Mac Gaming, and then they never did. Of course, now we have GeForce Now. You can stream, but it's not quite the same thing. So, yeah, I basically like more official support for this stuff would be nice, because the Cider, like the Cider tech from Trans Gaming was actually really cool. I mean, back in 2011, I recall playing Skyrim flawlessly. Not a single bug. I just threw the game in the Cider wrapper and it worked. It was like, took me 5 minutes. It's like, what? Of course, the licensing for the game was apparently like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something. That was the problem.
That's impossible. I don't believe you. There's no engine or computer build in the world that can run Skyrim flawlessly.
Well, what do you mean by flawlessly? I meant like... I wasn't running it at like 4K, 1000 FPS or something. I just meant I didn't have like crashes, mouse bugs, keyboard input problems, because this is running through a wrapper.
Yes, but the way will always be blocked by Lydia.
You're not wrong. Oh my god, small Skyrim anecdote. She scared the crap out of me when I got my first house and whatever it is, Whiterun or something. I can't remember the exact name. And you get her as a companion or whatever from, is it the Companion Guild? Anyway, I went into my house. It's kind of twilighty dark. I go into my room, upstairs, and like put some stuff on the table. And I turn around and she's sitting there in the dark in the corner, like leaning at me. And I was like, holy shit! Oh my god! Like, what is she doing?
She's staring at you with those unblinking eyes. And then you hear it in the corner out of the darkness. I am sworn to carry your burdens.
It totally startled me. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. So, it's funny that there's quite a few games that actually run very well on Mac through these non-native methods, but were never officially, sold or ported over or whatever. But, the community is large and the gamers want a game, so they find a way. Yeah, pretty much in most cases.
But sometimes these solutions also get used in sort of more of an official capacity. Like, so it got mentioned earlier, Final Fantasy XIV. The Mac version of that actually runs through a form of crossover. So the developers, I forgot who develops Final Fantasy XIV. It's probably Square Enix. Yeah, but is it Square Enix themselves, or do they license it out to another studio?
That's a good question.
Yeah, they're definitely the publisher, but are they the developer?
Well, whatever.
I think
the developers made a deal with Codeweavers. I mean, this is a service Codeweavers offers. It's not a specific deal with them, where they would make a specialized crossover wrapper for the Mac version of Final Fantasy XIV. So you're actually running the Windows version. It's just through a version of crossover that's been specifically crafted to make it easy and seamless to play Final Fantasy XIV.
Cool. Yeah, just as an aside, it is Square Enix who also develops it.
Nice.
Both developer and publisher. Yep.
I'm surprised more companies don't do that.
I think
World
it was
of
how
Tanks
The Witcher ran
also.
on Mac as well back in the day.
The Witcher 1 is a wine port. The Witcher 2 was done by, oh my god, what's their names? Not Feral, not Aspire, it's the third one. Oh my god, I can't remember their name all of a sudden.
Well, I never knew their name, so you're ahead of me on that one.
I've kind of written them off. Oh, they're the people who I'm mad at them because they bought the macgamer.com domain and refused to sell it, and it routes to their crummy, what's it called? Deliver to Mac or something. Okay, it doesn't even seem to be working. Now we used to reroute to their terrible, not even mobile-friendly store. It's so out of date. And I even was in some communication with them trying to buy it, and they refused. And I'm like, curse you! Give me your, I'm trying to throw money, give me your domain. And they refused. They also bought the Twitter handle off Apple 10 years ago or something. So, oh my god, virtual programming. There we go. It took a while. They helped port The Witcher 2. They didn't completely do it the way Feral or Spire might. They see, as far as I can tell from some blog posts and this and that, they basically they did do development on it. But they worked with CD Projekt Red to do it. It was in tandem, or a joint effort rather than a pure they just ported it on their own. Because the way they worded it was they helped port The Witcher to the Mac. They weren't we did it anyway, unless it was just semantics. But so that was interesting. And of course, sadly, as we know, The Witcher 3 never made it to Mac officially, but it runs great in crossover. Heck, you can even run it on an M1 Silicon machine. You can even run that, and I don't know how well it runs, frankly, but there's plenty of videos out there of people doing it. And of course, on a M1 Pro or an M1 Max wouldn't be hard. On a current Intel machine, if you have a good one, it's quite easy to run it through Parallels. So I can do it. I was able to do it on my last computer, which wasn't even as strong as this one, and I could do it at 1080p, 60 FPS Ultra. I just had to turn off the hair settings, the hair physics, the special, more natural wavy looking hair. I mean, Geralt's hair isn't that good looking, let's be honest, so that was fine. But it's funny, you turn that on and it just destroys the frame rate. The game turns into a slideshow. It can't handle I guess his hair is too powerful.
Not as powerful as Siri's hair.
Yeah, that's true. Hers is more powerful. It'd probably just crash. I didn't even try. But you turn that off and suddenly, boom, the game's really happy and runs great. So, yeah, that's fun. Sort of on a quick gaming segue, we don't talk about mobile stuff too often here, but Ted, you had said you picked up, was it an iPad Pro recently?
Yeah.
I'm looking to, have you found any interesting games to play on it yet, or?
Not yet. I've been playing a couple things. Apple waived the 3-month free Apple Arcade over my nose, so I took that and I've been trying a couple of things. I found one cute little game. It's just a puzzle game where you solve a puzzle and it has kind of an off story to it. I can't even remember the name of it right now, but I've only just started looking for things. But frankly, I haven't been seeing anything that really draws me in. And one of the things I was impressed. I mean, this is the audio in the iPad Pro, even with the tiny little speakers that are built into it. It was quite impressive when you're sitting there with it in front of you and you can hear the sound around you on stuff. I was really kind of impressed with that. They did a excellent engineering job on that. But so far I haven't really found anything I really, really like. And I still just go play on my Mac. But
yeah,
I was looking. The one thing I haven't tried yet, and I keep meaning to, but it's I got to find the time, is to do the NVIDIA thing, GeForce Now, and play one of my regular Windows games and stream it to it and see how that works. I just don't have a controller and a keyboard attached to it yet, so I got to get around to setting that all up. But so far it's been nice. I really like it. It's even the old games I was playing, they load so much quicker. It's amazing how much more powerful it is than my old Air. So,
well, yeah, the new iPad Pros are M1 chips now, right?
Right. It's
ones,
an M1 chip. Yeah, just a basic one, but it's So I thought that might be fun to try it out. So, and it's pretty nice. Yeah. So.
For a tablet that's screaming, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It really is. But like I said, I hope I find something, other than a couple. Most of the pastime games, what I consider them, where you play because it's interesting, a little bit of mental work or whatever, like the puzzle game. You got to solve the puzzle, but most of them aren't really. Oh gosh, I can't wait to go back to it and continue on with the story. So
Right.
I tried that. I
Yeah.
think Casper maybe suggested a game called Sky, if I remember that. Got the name title right.
Sky
yeah.
Kingdom
And
of Light. Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty good. I've been kind of poking around that. That has a kind of a ethereal feel to it, but and again, that one has an excellent soundtrack to it. Back to the game's artwork. That one's they did a good. But they actually promoted as make sure you wear headphones because you'll miss some of the effects. And I haven't tried it with headphones yet, but it's really impressive with the built-in speakers. Which again, that's what really impressed me on that. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Must be similar tech to what they're using in the new laptops, because the speakers are also very, like, for what the hardware, also very impressive for what it is.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that was the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like all the best, again, depends on the kind of gamer you are, but like the best iPad games I can think of are all games that just exist on the Mac that are ported to the iPad.
Right.
Like your
Yeah.
Darkest Dungeon, Divinity Original Sin, XCOM, like all these kinds of
KOTOR.
games. KOTOR, Slay the Spire,
Yeah.
like KOTOR, aka Knights of the Old Republic, for those who don't know.
Which is getting a remake soon.
Yes.
Super high.
Yes, I played through that game at least 2 or 3 times way back in like 2007. And the story is also really, really good in that game. Like very, very good. And of course, it has like the best bot ever. What is it? HK47. Like
Yeah.
calls everyone meatbags.
Meatbags.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fantastic. That's old. That's like peak, or not quite peak, but like golden age BioWare, basically, right? Like they just kept putting out hit after hit after hit. And then they've taken some hits, lately, and we'll see if they can redeem themselves with Dragon Age 4, and they're also making a new Mass Effect game. So they've been teasing that lately, some images on the, what would they call it, N7 Day, the anniversary, Mass Effect anniversary, and they teased some images, so we'll see. Why don't we wrap up with some games that, like, from each of us that we feel like we can always play or always enjoy. Kind of like we hinted at this at the end of the last show, and maybe some others, like what could be a timeless or ageless kind of game. Because we talked a little bit about how some games really do show their age, or maybe the design really shows its age. Like maybe awesome for the time, you revisit it 5 or 10 years later, it's like, okay, this is fun, but it's like really clunky. But maybe you don't care. So, Lily, I'm going to start with you because you've been going last in this discussion. Now you're first.
You know what I'm going to say.
I know, but it's,
Mass
the
Effect.
audience doesn't.
Yeah, I've always loved Mass Effect, even before Legendary Edition. Legendary Edition just makes it so much better. But
Right.
but yeah, even before Legendary Edition, I've just played through Mass Effect so many times. They're just, there's so many different classes. Within the classes, you have so many different play styles. The play styles between each game can vary. There's so many different choices and stories that you can choose to take part in. You can go pure Renegade, pure Paragon, and any shade in between. Just I've always loved it, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, none of it matters at the end," but to me, it's like the journey matters more than the end. So
Yeah.
I've always liked playing through, especially Mass Effect 1 and 2. Mass
Right.
Effect 3 is much more of a linear story, but it's still fun, and I'll still play through it every single time.
Right. You mentioned 1 and 2 are more fun. If you absolutely had to pick one in the trilogy, like, I don't know, you're on a desert island somehow and you have power and a laptop. Ridiculous, but whatever. Like, if you could only pick one of the 3, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Is it Legendary Edition or not?
Yeah, we'll say it's legendary. Yeah.
Okay, with Legendary Edition, probably Mass Effect 1.
I figured you'd say that. Yeah.
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 If it was not, Mass Effect 2. Just because the original
Exactly.
Mass Effect 1 was just clunky, the story was fantastic and the amount of things you could do in that game was great, but it was very clunky. But in the Legendary Edition remake, they fixed pretty much all the clunk. Like,
yeah, well, it was an
still, you can tell-
RPG with shooter elements, not a shooter with RPG elements, which they made the
Yeah.
later games as. Yeah.
And
So now,
you
yeah.
can tell it's still a dated game, but it no longer plays strange. There's not
Right,
like
it's
the
been really
Mako is
polished,
actually
yeah.
controllable. You know, then that makes
Oh.
the exploration side of things a lot more fun as well, because you're no longer like, all right, let me tap D once and I'm throwing myself off a cliff.
Yeah, that was rightly panned at the time. Yeah, huge fan of Mass Effect, or Crack Effect, as I inadvertently tricked Lily into calling it for a long time.
You didn't trick it. I fully accept that. You know,
Well, yeah,
I'm
not
hooked
trick.
on that. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, not tricked, that's the wrong word, but like pass that on. Really good series. For me, I'm gonna have to pick Deus Ex. The original, sadly, isn't playable, not natively playable on Mac. I'm sure it would run quite easily through crossover or parallels, like without a hitch. That remains my most played single-player game of all time, like at least 15 to 20 times, full runs, finish to start. Same thing, similar to what Lily was talking about with Mass Effect, trying different builds and classes and picking different sides, making different choices, taking different routes, all that kind of stuff. It's a little more expansive than Mass Effect in that sense, but peak Ion Storm way back in the day. But if I had to pick a more modern one, Mankind Divided, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which is technically a prequel, and it does that funny thing some prequels do, where even though it's a prequel, it's in some cases technologically superior. Even though it's supposed to be set before, it's actually like more fancy in some cases. But that's basically for the game side, so you get cool toys and augmentations to play around with. It's technically the second game in the reboot. I think it came out in 2016, ported by Feral Interactive. Really great port, great Mac optimization, even back then. Now on a strong Intel or, M1 Pro or Max machine, you could really crank like the resolution and settings if you weren't able to before. I did go back on, I think, this iMac, and I played it in like 4 or 5K mega settings. I was like, oh, this actually it looked good anyway, but the resolution increase like really, really sharpens it. In the game, we're talking about artistry and everything we were earlier. Really interesting artistic design choices in that game. Sort of this Victorian meets futuristic meets cyber setting. It's really unique blend of setting and characters. But a really fun RPG. Lots of mysteries and side quests to explore in the game, and Mankind Divided specifically. In Human Revolution, the previous game, which for some reason had a Mac version by Feral for a while, and then I think it expired. The licensing or something that happens, it just poofed. If you still have the game like installed in your Steam library, you could still play it. But if you were to delete it, I don't think you can like reinstall it. Some weird thing like that. And of course they made a director's cut, but that didn't make it to the Mac side, sadly. But Mankind Divided, still a great game. Direct continuation. There's no like importing of your choices. Human Revolution had, I think, 4 different endings, 3 main endings and a secret one. Amounted to button pressing, kind of lame, honestly. But Mankind Divided makes that a canon choice. Interestingly, and I'll wrap it up with this, I think the game's just visually fun. It's a cool RPG shooter. You can, you're ultimately you're playing an Interpol agent at this case, augmented, but, it tries to say something about like race and class divides, like augmented versus non-augmented, and kind of makes some interesting statements there. But what I find the most compelling is it's like semi-open world in the city of Prague, or whatever year that is in the future of Prague. There's actually, the side stories are far more interesting actually than the main story in Mankind Divided. The main story is fine, but there's a ton of really cool side quests you can just get lost in, like solving crimes that actually makes like really reasonable case for like a good, what do you call it, crime simulator. I don't know. You can get just locked in apartments with like strange AIs that are out to get you. You can stumble on like weird underground cults in the sewers. There's just all this stuff that's totally optional and you may never see if you don't explore. In a very different sense to Mass Effect, because Mass Effect, you're exploring that like vastness of space, and that's really exciting. But there's also a lot to explore in a game like Mankind Divided. And for me, it's like a timeless game because I love the themes of like human augmentation and kind of this like global conspiracy stuff and shadow wars and, what can one person do to try to change or alter fates. But mostly it's just like a fun RPG series for me. That's what for me, that's why it's timeless. I've rambled on longer than I wanted to, but I love the series as a whole, barring Invisible War, which was not a bad game, but it was a bad Deus Ex game. So we'll just pretend Invisible War never happened. Yeah. So that's it for me. Sorry for taking up more time. Ted or Sam, you have a forever game for you?
I can pick up.
Sorry, I called you Sam. Ted or Casper? My bad.
But I think my number one pick in terms of games of all time really is The Longest Journey, which is an old point-and-click adventure game. I think it came out in like 1996 or something. Like maybe it was in the 90s, late 90s.
Right.
And it has a fantastic story. I absolutely love it. There's 3 games in the series. The latest one, Dreamfall Chapters, does have a Mac version, but it makes absolutely zero sense to play it if you don't play the games prior in the series. So you can't really avoid, not the Mac side of things if you want to play the full experience, unless you've already played them previously, where you can then pick up the latest version or the latest entry in the series and play. But it is one continuous story throughout all 3 games. And there was going to be The Longest Journey Home, which was going to sit in between the very first and the second one, but that didn't really get funding, so that didn't happen, unfortunately. An absolutely fantastic series of games. Yeah.
Sorry, quick aside. It seems like The Longest Journey, the original one you were mentioning, is on iOS, apparently.
It had an iOS version, but it was before iOS went 64-bit only, and it was only a 32-bit version, and just fell apart from it. So
I see. Okay.
Unfortunately, that no longer exists. But
so strong,
that,
yeah.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say the strong story element is what's really like giving it its staying power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the visuals are obviously dated because you're looking at like 340p resolution or something, right? But it's fun. It looks good enough for what it's doing, even though it looks terrible. Also, aside from that, I also really, really love the Old Rpg Gothic 2. I think that came out in 2002, and it's again one of those games that, again, you can see it. The visuals aren't great, and the controls are horrendous by standard. By default, it assumes you don't have a mouse. It assumes you're only got a keyboard. You can enable mouse control, but the mouse control kind of janky. So it's almost better to just play it keyboard only. Great game.
Yeah, it was 2002. Yeah.
Whoa, my memory is sharp today. I was thinking of one more that was not available on macOS as well, but I forgot what that was right now. But 2 games that do exist on macOS that I think also have ageless designs are the latest XCOM games, XCOM Enemy Unknown / Enemy Within and XCOM 2. Because they are the kind of strategy game where even if you've beat it 100 times, I feel like there's still so much fun to be had just going through campaign of those again. And there is an online mode as well, but I think that's more fun if you play with someone you know rather than just random strangers. And because it is kind of limited, but it can be a fun little, almost like a board game feel to it if you play with someone you know. And it's just super fun turn-based game.
I thought I might have played against Lily once, but I might be mixing it up with someone else, like the multiplayer in XCOM. Maybe it was someone else, unless Lily remembers.
No, I tried it out.
Yeah. But absolutely agree. Yeah.
I don't know. XCOM was not my personal type of strategy game, so I fell off it a little quick. But we definitely tried.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's totally fair. Not every game is for everyone, but it's if you're into that kind of strategy, I feel like it really just perfectly nails that kind of gameplay.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like into turn-based strategy in the slightest, and I still enjoyed it. The only reason I fell off is because I don't know. I guess I need a little more engagement. I kind of fall behind on turn-based strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you're a real-time gal. You play tons of, all those. Oh my god, I don't know. So many times I've messaged you on Steam. You're playing some yeah, some real time, or pick your series version of some RTS. Absolutely. Yeah, RTSs are really engaging. Yeah, Casper.
I remember what the last game was.
Ooh.
Final Fantasy X is, in my opinion, the greatest Final Fantasy game, and I absolutely love it. Again, mostly because of the story, but I think even though it came back all the way in like the PS2 days, I can't remember a date for this one, all the way back in the PS2 days, it still looks fantastic, even if you don't play the HD remaster, but the HD remaster looks even better. And you can, even though it's called an HD remaster, you can crank it up to 5K if you get a 5K iMac, and it looks so lovely. I absolutely adore Final Fantasy X.
2001 for Japan and North America, 2002 for Australia and Europe for some reason.
It's so incredible considering how good it looks. Really great.
Ted, do you have like a all-time sort of ageless game for yourself?
I was trying to think about something, and I really don't. I would have said World of Warcraft a couple months ago, but I've kind of lost interest in it, mainly because I don't know, something changed with me. But there's been a handful of games over the years that I played a number of times or for a long period of times, but there's nothing I would currently say, oh, geez, I'd really like to go back to it and try it again. So I would say not really. There's been, I played, like I said, I played a number of games several times. The Diablo 2 was one of my favorites for a long time. That's going back a ways. Bioshock Infinite was excellent, and I played that one through at least 3 times just because I enjoyed the way it progressed. And World of Warcraft, same way. I mean, I think I played every type of character, almost every race, at one time or another, and leveled them up. I think before I quit, I had like 7 different characters that I was running on an active basis, and so different factions.
Well, even if you've quit World of Warcraft, it's still, from the sound of it, seems to be your longest played game. I think you said about 15 years.
Definitely.
So
yeah, definitely.
You could kind of pick it even if you're not currently like playing,
right?
Because you did end up playing it for so long, and it's still a big MMO with lots of content and lots of people playing it and everything. And maybe you seem to want to maybe possibly nominate Bioshock Infinite, or you could even say the Bioshock series as a whole. I don't know if you go that far, but
Bioshock was real good. I played the basic Bioshock twice, and then I played Infinite like 3 or 4 times. I never did the what was it, 2, the one where you play as one of the bad guys, the
Big Daddies,
Big Daddy, yeah. But
that's interesting. Yeah, okay.
But
it is on Mac, the Bioshock 2 remaster from Feral, along with the previously unreleased on Mac Minerva's Den DLC. I would highly recommend it. I think it's Bioshock 1's a better game. I'd say Bioshock 1 and 3 or 3 being Infinite. It's not actually called Bioshock 3. I'm calling it Bioshock 3. We may get a Bioshock 3 in the future or something. Who knows? I think they're both better games than 2, but I think 2 in a lot of ways had a better story than either of them. It doesn't make it better. It was a more personable / emotional story, basically, and showed a very interesting side of Rapture that the other games didn't. Basically from the perspective of the Big Daddies and the Little Sisters. That's what the game focuses on. So it gives you kind of the flip perspective compared to Bioshock 1, or even, minor spoilers, parts of Bioshock Infinite, or the DLC at least. So yeah, I think they're all fantastic games, played alone or together. The series as a whole, yeah. If I had to pick, anyway, at some point we should probably do I don't know, some top 5 or 10 all-time list or something for each of us. But yeah, huge Bioshock fan. And podcast is running a little long, so we'll probably stop there, but we covered some fun stuff. Got to hear the opinions of Ted and Lily on our game artistry, our personal backlog / or lack thereof, strategies, and how that's working out for us, and some other cool hardware, software tidbits, and some ageless games. So I think it was a fun show. really happy all of us could make it. Sam was busy, so he wasn't here. Thankfully, Lily was able to make some time. Always happy to have you on the show and hear your thoughts and opinions. Always very fun.
Yeah, always nice to be here. Wish I could come more often, but life is rough.
Tough times. Yeah. But hopefully everyone stays healthy, stays well, and stays, I was going to say stays gaming. But I think, we'll all keep gaming without too much trouble, in theory anyway. It'll be the end of the world, and we're like, one more game! Dragging away from the keyboard. Yeah, maybe not, but...
No, that'll be me. That's how they're going to have to get me.
Yeah. So good stuff, lady and gents. Appreciate it as always. So we'll sign off here. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
A big thank you to Kevin MacLeod for the intro and outro music. Be sure to check out his library on the web. You can find more episodes of our show on our website, macgamecast.com, or in all major podcast directories. If you enjoy the show, please consider commenting, following, or sharing. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.